Do you ever feel like you did everything right and still ended up exhausted? Like no matter how hard you try, life just keeps asking for more? You studied, you worked, you tried to be responsible, and somehow, it still doesn't feel like enough. If you're a millennial, this isn't random. It's a pattern. Because you were told a very specific story growing up. Study hard, get a degree, build a stable life, and if you follow the steps, everything will fall into place. But instead, you got burnout, anxiety, and this constant quiet pressure to keep up with a life that never slows down. So now the real question is, did millennials fail? Or were they set up to play a game where the rules kept changing? Because this generation didn't just grow up, it adapted through chaos. Millennials didn't grow up in a normal timeline. They grew up in a world that kept shifting under their feet. One moment, life was simple, slow internet, offline friendships, clear expectations. And the next, everything changed. Technology exploded. Opportunities expanded. But so did pressure, uncertainty, and competition. You remember a time before everything was online? But now you're expected to exist inside it 24/7. You were raised to believe in stability. Study hard, get a job, build a secure future. But by the time you stepped into adulthood, that stability was already disappearing. Jobs became unpredictable. Costs kept rising. And suddenly, the path you were promised didn't look the same anymore. So no, you weren't inconsistent. Your environment was. You didn't fail to keep up. The rules kept changing while you were still learning how to play. And that's what makes millennials different. They are the bridge generation, the last to remember what life felt like before constant noise, and the first to fully live inside it, caught between old-world security and new-world uncertainty. And that in-between space, that's where the pressure begins. Let's break this down, because if you're a millennial, these patterns don't just show up randomly, they show up daily. You didn't just grow up, you were evaluated. Grades mattered, achievements mattered, recognition mattered, and slowly, without realizing it, you started linking your worth to how well you performed. So now, rest doesn't feel neutral, feels like you're falling behind. Even on your days off, there's this quiet voice in the background saying, you should be doing more. It's not just ambition, it's pressure. You're always thinking about the next step, career growth, side income, self-improvement. Not because you're greedy, but because deep down it feels like slowing down isn't safe. Like if you stop pushing, life might pass you, so you keep going. Even when you're exhausted. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you rested without feeling guilty about it? You're the first generation that didn't just grow up, but grew up online. And now, comparison is everywhere. You open your phone for a few minutes, just to relax, and suddenly you're watching someone your age traveling more, earning more, achieving more. And without thinking, your brain turns that into a question. Am I behind? Even if you weren't feeling that way before, there was a timeline you were taught. Graduate, get stable, settle down. But reality feels delayed. Marriage comes later. Financial stability takes longer. Even clarity feels postponed. Not because you don't want these things, but because they're harder to reach than they used to be. So you end up in this strange space, where it feels like your life is on pause, but the world still expects you to be on schedule. Here's the paradox. Millennials understand mental health better than any generation before. You can name your stress. You can explain your patterns. You're self-aware. But awareness doesn't always mean relief. Because even though you understand your burnout, you're still living inside it. So you become someone who can explain everything you feel, but still struggles to change it. From the outside, you're doing okay, maybe even well. But internally, it never feels like enough. There's always someone ahead, someone faster, someone who figured it out earlier. And that creates this constant, subtle pressure to catch up, to do more, to be more. So let me ask you something honestly. Why does good enough never feel enough? Because none of this is random. These patterns, these thoughts, this pressure, They all come from somewhere. And once you understand why your brain works this way, you stop blaming yourself for it. So what's actually going on here? Why does it feel like you're always pushing, always thinking, always a little bit tired? Comes down to one thing. Millennials didn't just develop habits. They developed a high-effort survival mindset. A way of thinking that made sense before, but now quietly works against you. Let's break it down. Growing up, effort wasn't just encouraged. It was rewarded. Good grades, praise, achievements, recognition, hard work, approval. And over time, your brain built a simple rule. If I perform, I matter. So now, as an adult, doing nothing doesn't feel neutral. Feels like losing value. That's why resting feels uncomfortable. Because somewhere deep down, your brain still believes your worth has to be earned. Then life changed. Fast. Economies shifted. Careers became unpredictable. The cost of living kept rising. So your brain adapted. It learned, I need to stay alert. I need to keep improving. I need to adjust constantly. And that adaptation helped you survive. But here's the problem. Your brain never turned it off. So even when things are okay, you still feel like you're catching up. Like if you slow down, you might fall behind. Now add social media on top of that. You're not just living your life. You're watching everyone else's too, constantly. And your brain isn't designed to process that much comparison. So it simplifies it. Someone else's success becomes proof that I'm behind. Even if it's not true. Even if you were perfectly content just a moment ago. That one scroll can completely shift how you feel about your own life. And then there's the biggest one. You were promised something simple. Work hard, build a stable life. That was the deal. But when you followed it, the outcome didn't match. Stability felt delayed. Security felt uncertain. And the finish line kept moving. So your brain got confused. Because the effort is there, but the reward doesn't feel equal. And that gap, that's where frustration grows. That's where burnout begins. So if you've been blaming yourself for being tired, for overthinking, for never feeling like it's enough, listen carefully. You're not weak. You're not lazy. Your brain is just running on survival rules that were built for a different version of the world. And if you don't recognize that, these patterns don't just stay in your head. They start shaping your relationships, your choices, and how you experience life itself. And this is where it starts to get heavy, because these patterns don't just stay productive or motivating. Over time, they begin to cost you something. This isn't just being tired after a long day. This is waking up tired, even after you've rested. Your mind feels full. Your energy feels low. And everything starts to feel like effort. Not because you're doing too little, but because you've been doing too much for too long. And the scary part? It starts to feel normal. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just quietly. Everyone is busy trying to survive their own lives. Schedules don't align. Energy runs out. And conversations get shorter. You see the message. You want to reply, but you just don't have the energy. So you tell yourself, I'll respond later. And somehow, later never comes. At some point, a question starts to show up. Soft at first, then louder over time. Is this really the life I worked so hard for? Because what you were chasing doesn't feel the way you thought it would. Your career might be stable, but it doesn't feel meaningful. Your life might look fine from the outside, but inside something feels off. And that creates a quiet kind of confusion, where you don't know what to change, but you know something isn't right. Even when you finally slow down, you can't fully relax, because your mind doesn't let you. You sit down to rest, and within minutes the thoughts start. You should be doing something. You're wasting time. You're falling behind. So even your rest doesn't feel like rest. And sometimes, even happiness feels undeserved. Like you haven't earned it yet. This one is the hardest to notice. Because on the surface, you're connected. You scroll. You like. You reply. But emotionally, feels different. Conversations feel lighter. Connections feel thinner. And even though you're surrounded by people online, there's this subtle feeling that no one really sees what you're carrying. So you keep it to yourself. And over time, that turns into a quiet kind of loneliness. But here's the part most people miss. None of this means something is wrong with you. In fact, it might be pointing to something stronger, something more aware, something that just hasn't been reframed yet. Here's the truth. Everything we just went through doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're aware. And awareness is power. You understand burnout. You recognize the stress. You know what's happening inside your mind. Most people never reach that level of self-awareness. And awareness gives you a choice. It lets you see patterns, understand them, and slowly start to change them. Your brain isn't failing you, you just have the tools to work with it differently. Think about it. You survived dial-up internet, flipped phones, recessions, global crises, social media explosions. You learned to pivot, to adjust, to keep going. So if you feel unstable sometimes, remember this. You're not unstable. You're flexible. And flexibility is a strength most people spend a lifetime trying to develop. Society tells you success is money, status, speed. But what if it wasn't? What if success was calm mornings, peaceful nights, and time to breathe? What if it was alignment, not endless achievement? Ask yourself, what if success meant feeling calm, instead of constantly chasing more? Because you get to define that now. You might feel guilty resting, but rest isn't optional. It's the tool that clears your mind, recharges your energy, and sharpens your focus. Burnout decreases everything. Rest restores everything. It's not weakness, it's strategy. You already did enough. Years of hustle, pressure, and pushing, you survived it all. Now it's about choosing what matters. Not for anyone else, but for you. Maybe your life isn't behind. Maybe it's just asking you to slow down, to notice what truly matters, and choose differently. And if you think this feels freeing, wait until you see what's really happening inside your brain that keeps you comparing, overthinking, and questioning yourself. We'll explore that next. Let's pause for a moment. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I actually behind? Or just exhausted from trying to keep up? Because here's the thing. Being tired doesn't mean you failed. Constant comparison doesn't mean you're lazy. Feeling behind doesn't mean everyone else is ahead. It just means you've been running a race on a course that keeps changing. And if you're a millennial watching this, think for a second, which part of this felt a little too real? The guilt around resting? The constant comparison? Or that subtle fear that you're never doing enough? Comment below and share your story. I read every comment, and I really want to hear from you, because you're not alone. And here's the kicker. There's something even deeper happening. A reason your brain keeps overthinking. A reason you compare yourself. A reason good enough never really feels enough. And once you understand that, everything starts to make sense. That's exactly what we're breaking down in the next video. So if this resonated with you, make sure you hit that notification, because understanding this could completely change the way you see yourself.